Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Off the Iron. It's the Goodwin boys, Adam.
And Evan.
Back at it again with another episode. It's been a while, but before we dive in, just a quick reminder that Off the Iron is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Barbecue Catering. Pick up one of your favorite signature smoked meats, sausages, or burgers with 2 sides and a drink for just $12. Visit them at 5303 68th Avenue, Southeast Calgary. Open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays, and including little Friday lunch special. They always go quickly, so drop by, support local, pick one of them up. Be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, super key these days. Support your local businesses for sure.
Definitely. The voice you just heard, of course, was my brother Evan. We are back. It's been a while. Why don't we
Yeah, it's been a long while. It's been a couple months. Yeah. There's good reason for that, though.
Definitely. Sorry, I got a notification from something that messed me up. It flashed across my screen. So
damn notifications. Turn them off. Haven't you seen The Social Dilemma?
Yeah, I know. No, actually, I haven't seen that.
But. Oh, you should watch it. It's pretty good.
So, Evan, why don't you fill the crowd in on what your life's been like the last 2 months, 3 months?
Oh yeah, well, my life is completely changed for the better. I became a papa to my first child in late October there, so that's why Adam and I have not had a chance to do anything, because I haven't had a chance to know what way's up lately. So my wife and I welcomed a baby girl into the world at the end of October. Happy and healthy, got through delivering in the hospital with COVID and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have COVID, but just with COVID times.
Yeah.
Of course, I should clarify that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's happy, healthy, growing like a weed. I guess I should say the name. Her name's Eva. That's my life is definitely not the same and won't be for the rest of the time I'm on this earth. So it's been an adventure. It's been learning every day. It's been very humbling every day as well. Lost my cool more times than I care to admit from sleep deprivation and lack of sleep. That was something I wasn't anticipating that affected me as much as it did. But happy to report that things are starting to settle out, and Adam and I will be doing these episodes of Off the Iron on a more frequent basis going forward now that we get in hockey back too. So there's lots to talk about. Lots has happened in the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Other than that, I've just been kind of keeping to myself. Had a pretty low-key Christmas. Didn't really do much of anything, to be honest. So it was kind of nice. Just drank a lot of beer, as I'm sure most of the country probably did as well. Watched the World Juniors too. For the first time in a while, I've watched almost every game with the World Juniors, which was fantastic. But anyway, let's throw to you. What have you been up to over the last 3 months?
Well, it's been a little interesting, at work. We've had almost the last full month off, just due to COVID and January being a slow month anyways, and no events, obviously, because of the complete lockdown pretty much. Work's been not as stressful as it usually is during summer months and spring months, but it's been good, and looking forward to doing these a little bit more regularly. Obviously, during like November and December, there wasn't a ton of stuff to report. Just
lots of waiting.
Lots of waiting and figuring out when it was going to happen and when the season was going to start. And lo and behold, it kind of just came out of nowhere. Like, I think it was just before Christmas when we got the official word that they were looking for January 13th, which we thought at that point was kind of a pipe dream,
Yeah, definitely.
3 weeks to do training camp and quarantines and cuts and figure out how many players and the salary cap, all that stuff. But they figured it out, and we're ready to drop the puck. It's going to be one hell of a year. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media pages, or shoot us an email if you want us to discuss certain topics on Facebook and Instagram. Off the Iron Podcast, just type that in. We'll come up first search result. And then on Twitter at Off the Iron Pod. as well as our Gmail, offtheironpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check us out on YouTube. If you prefer the visual fix to your podcast, we are recording this over Zoom. And we got both of our ugly mugs on here if you want to look at us. But
yeah, I don't know who would want to do that, but go ahead.
We got a couple views, but
it's brand new. We only have 2 episodes worth of video up there, so
yeah, definitely
it'll get there.
It'll get there indeed. So what we're going to talk about today, just some general NHL overview on what the upcoming season is going to look like, the amount of games and all that. As well, we're going to dive into 2 of the divisions today. That is one of the changes, obviously, with a little bit of realignment thanks to COVID. Do 2 division previews, do a full breakdown of the teams, new additions, new signings, and then maybe a little prediction at the end, who's going to make the playoffs and whatnot. But that's what we're going to look like on this episode. So seeing as how we are in Canada, we should probably start with the North Division. What do you say?
Yeah, I think so. But let's recap for folks what the NHL is going to look like this upcoming season before we dive right into the divisions.
Right. Of course, I just said that, and then I just completely butchered back. So here we go. So it is going to be a 56-game season starting on January 13th, which is right now. We should let you know that we're recording this at 8:52 p.m. on January 11th. So if any news breaks by the time this is released and we didn't talk about it, that's kind of why. As we speak right now, the Flames are actually playing a intra-squad game. Last time I checked, it was 3-1 for the Flames.
I was going to say for Team McGinley or Team McDonald?
Yes. But as I said, the regular season will be held between January 13th and May 8th. The reasoning for that sort of timeline is because the NHL wants to get the Stanley Cup awarded by July to help for 2 reasons. One, to help get it back on schedule for next year so we can start in October, or later this year, I should say. And then 2, they want to avoid the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, obviously, which on NBC, which is, the broadcast partner in the United States. That's the home of the summer games, and they're always a big TV event, and the NHL did not want to go head-to-head with that.
Yeah, the Olympics will capture most of the U.S. TV audience too, so I'm sure the numbers for a late round Stanley Cup playoff, depending on who makes it, would not be very good, depending on the market, of course. In the States, especially against the Olympics, and even in Canada, I think the Olympics is a big draw for the Canadian TV market as well. So it's the Summer Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ones that were originally
July.
Yeah, they were originally scheduled for last August, I think, or July 2020 in Tokyo. They've been pushed back a year, so we'll see if those end up going through or not. But the salary cap is staying flat at $81.5 million this year, which created a lot of problems for a lot of teams. That is kind of the biggest reason, probably, that the official announcement of a season was sort of delayed. Is that a lot of financial stuff to figure out here? All that stuff all that boring stuff that we don't really like to talk about. CBAs, all that stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, too, there's with the financial pressures that a lot of the organizations are facing, they're having to obviously cut salary in a few markets, Arizona being one. I believe Chicago's in the midst of cutting salary as well.
Yeah. Pittsburgh, I think, was told to as well.
Pittsburgh was told to as well, yeah, I believe. And unfortunately, that means, the top guys, the superstars, they're still going to get paid. Mm-hmm. The middle of the tier guys, they're still going to get paid, although not as much. They're looking like $1 to $3 million now instead of 3 to 5-ish range. But unfortunately, if you're a bottom end player, and I shouldn't say that bottom end player, but a less desired player, we'll just say it like that.
The average NHLer.
Yeah, the average NHLer, or one of those bubble guys before.
Yeah.
you're not going to be making much money for the next couple of years until things rebound, unfortunately. And we'll see a lot of those people that were kind of hanging around on, the 1-year contracts, 750K kind of floating from team to team, PTO to PTO. They'll just unfortunately fade away. There won't be room or anything for them. So that's the unfortunate piece of the way the financials are shaken down for sure.
Yeah. And of course, the side effect of that is a lot, and I mean a lot of 1-year deals for a lot of guys, just to try to push, their payday to further in the future. But the salary cap is going to stay at 81.5 for probably at least the next 2 seasons after this one. So it's going to be tough to see the financial landscape change all that much in less than a calendar year.
I mean, a lot of teams were banking on salary cap growth over the next couple of years because revenues were pretty stable for the NHL. So that usually means growth in salary cap. But man, did it put the crunch on a few teams. There's still, I think half the teams are still over the salary cap right now. They got to figure out a way to cut salary.
Yeah, there's going to be interesting ways to do it. We saw a few players go on waivers today that sort of raised some eyebrows across the league. Probably more to do financially than the quality of the player, except for the case of Louis Eriksson in Vancouver, as I'm sure Canucks fans can attest to. But so that is where the salary cap is standing. Rule changes. There was an interesting rule change to the offside rule, which I'm very excited about. And that the rule, how it now works is that you can only review, the player skate only has to break the plane of the blue line rather than be on the actual ice. So you know how last season and the past couple of seasons we've had those, minutes long reviews of, is the skate on the ice or is it off? Is it slightly off?
His toes on, but his heels up, like that kind of stuff, right?
So I love the fact that it has to be on the plane of the blue line. It's going to speed things up, and it's going to be a lot easier to make calls and the right calls. So, in the grand scope of things, it doesn't really matter if somebody's 1 millimeter offside. If his skate is hovering above the blue line, I've always thought that should be onside, but it's official now, and I'm happy to see that.
So just to clarify, because I actually didn't know this rule change, if someone's skate is on the blue line on an offside review, that's considered offside or good?
But it has to, so it can be up in the air, but it's kind of like the a football in football.
Oh, breaking the plane. I gotcha.
Yeah. So as long as a piece of their skate is either hovering above or touching the blue line, then it's considered onside.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I like that because a lot of teams were using that as that might be offside to, bring a goal back or whatever. And sometimes, I wouldn't say sometimes, I would say probably 50-50 almost. The guy had no bearing on the play at all. He was either on the far boards or, just hopping off the bench or hopping on the ice kind of thing.
And then you call it back 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah, exactly.
Before the goal even happens. So it was a bit muddied there, but now it's got some clarity, which is good to see.
Good.
In case I didn't mention, it is a 56-game season, 4 divisions, 7 or 8 teams in each division, depending on which one. And of course, will all be divisional play. There will not be interdivisional play. So we got the Scotiabank North, the Mass Mutual East. Let's see if I can remember all these. The Discover Central and the something West.
SAP maybe or something?
Maybe, could be. I should actually look that up right now. But that's another thing that's going to change this year. Lots more sponsorships. Obviously, the league and the team's got to find a few extra dollars here and there. Some people were a little bit choked that it's going to come through ad revenue on the helmets. The Flames have a Scotiabank logo on their helmet now, which actually doesn't look too bad when you look at it through, their entire uniform. It's just the logo, no words. So it's a bit of a love-hate thing with most fans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super pumped about that, but they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
They got to increase revenue so that they can help out some of those struggling markets and stuff like that too. I mean, I don't claim to be a financial expert on the league or anything like that, so take anything I say in terms of financials with a grain of salt. But I'm not a fan of the Spangler Cup leagues where their entire jersey, pants, and gloves and helmet are all just covered in ads. I think it looks ridiculous. But a few ads here, maybe a crest on someone's jersey, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, if you think people are mad about the helmet, wait till it pops up on the on the jerseys. People are gonna riot. But we've seen it in the NBA actually. The only they only have one logo. It's tiny. It's right on the sort of the left or the right side of the chest. Even companies like Bumble, I think, is one of them. Like, I think the Raptors sponsor is Sun Life Financial. And you barely even notice them, especially on TV, unless you get, the close-up zoom in. So maybe we'll get there one day, but as of right now, it's just on the helmets. But, got to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll be a permanent thing, but it might be, depending on how much revenue it brings in. Who knows?
And it is the Honda West.
Honda, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
so
sorted.
Yeah.
We're not getting any ad revenue from any of those folks, so let's move on.
No. So that is the sponsorship deals. Other than that, I think what else? There's been some outdoor games announced at Lake Tahoe, actually. Not sure who's playing right now, but they're going to be held on February 20th and 21st. So that'll be exciting. It looks like the Flyers and Bruins and Avalanche and Golden Knights. So
that'll be a good game.
There was some talk back in like October of it being at Lake Louise, but they look like they've decided to go to the U.S. with that, in Lake Tahoe, which is Northern California, right?
Yep.
Northern California. So that'll be interesting to see. Can't wait to see. Usually I'm not a fan of the outdoor games because there's too many, but when it's at a beautiful lake like that'll be interesting to see. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's another way for the NHL to generate some revenue too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is all it is. I mean, the first couple outdoor games were cool, in my opinion, but they're starting to be a little played out.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm not too bent out of shape about it.
Some other news were the league-wide reverse retro jerseys. We'll just touch on this real quick. Obviously, every NHL team introducing, for some of them, a not so brand new reverse retro jersey. Some pretty poor efforts around the league, but most of them are pretty good. But definitely the lowlights. The New York Islanders is basically the same jersey they wear now. And the Detroit Red Wings looks like a practice jersey. So,
well, I mean, the Red Wings, they haven't done much jersey-wise in a long time. They've been pretty consistent, right? So,
yeah,
it does look like a practice jersey. And the Islanders, you should have brought back the actual Islander, what our logo is kind of modeled
the fisherman.
After. Yeah, the fisherman with the net in the background and stuff.
People were clamoring for it, but I guess they decided to stray away from that. But being as this is a Flames first podcast most of the time, what do you think of Blasty, Evan?
I might have an unpopular opinion here, but I wasn't a huge fan of Blasty to begin with. I hated that logo when it was on the Flames actual jerseys.
The flaming booger horse.
Yeah, the flaming booger horse, exactly. I know it's quite representative of Calgary, just with the Stampede and the Western traditions in Southern Alberta. Well, in Alberta in general, not just Southern Alberta. So it did represent the city quite well. But nothing beats the Flaming Sea, in my opinion. I would have liked to see the Atlanta Flame logo come back as a retro.
Yeah.
Instead of Blasty, but I know there is quite a large community out there that love that Blasty horse. I mean, it's all over Twitter. It was all over Twitter before it was announced, and everyone's ordered their jersey. I will not be buying a Blasty jersey. Hot take.
Yeah, I don't think I will be either.
But they look nice. I mean, the black jersey with the red and yellow logo, Blasty logo, they look nice.
Yeah, they are pretty clean. I do I don't hate them, but I don't like it. It doesn't make me want to go buy one. And I do like these ones better than the original Blasty uniform.
That I will say. Yeah, they
because
look
I do
better
like
than the original.
I do like the thin striping on the bottom and obviously the shoulder patches with the white C. It looks pretty nice, and obviously a very stark contrast to what their full-time jerseys are now, which are the retros.
Yeah.
So you got the best of both worlds there. You got the white and red retros, and then Blasty coming back. Yeah, my overall feeling is I don't hate it, but I'm not too excited about it. But some of the other ones that were great, Colorado bringing back the Quebec Nordiques.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that one
with the maroon. I think another team that actually kind of missed the boat a little bit was Anaheim.
Anaheim. I was just gonna say that of what's the mascot there? Wild Wing bursting through the ice like that.
I remember, for those of you who don't know, we actually used to live in Anaheim when we were younger, and I had a Wild Wing poster in my room at one point. But it's kind of boring, to be honest. I would rather, their purple jerseys with the teal, or not teal, but that kind of greenish blue color.
Yeah, the Korea era.
Yeah. Kind of like switch the purple and the blue, have purple striping, and then the blue uni. I think that would have looked pretty sick, but but here's I guess people were hoping for Wild Wings, so interesting to see that. Any other ones that stick out to you?
To me, definitely the Nordiques one. Well done, Colorado, with that one. Mm-hmm. That's that jersey will sell like hotcakes, both in Colorado and all through Canada. So that's a smart move there. I like the Hartford Whalers. Retro bring back. I love the Buffalo Sabres cross swords logo from the early 90s, the Brett Hall era and the Hasek era. And I like the Wild too, bringing back the Minnesota North Stars colors, but keeping the Wild logo. That jersey looks awesome, in my opinion.
But they almost got the old Okotoks Oilers colors there. Eh?
Yeah, a little bit. What my favorite one is, I love the red and green New Jersey Devils jersey. I've always loved that jersey.
The Christmas jersey.
Yeah, before obviously my growing up, my dad was a huge Flames fan, so that's where I get my love of the Flames from. But before I was really into Flames and into hockey, I always loved Martin Brodeur. Obviously, being a goalie, I idolized him. And New Jersey Devils were my team because of it. And I actually had an old school jersey, a home jersey of the Christmas jersey. But I think that jersey looks fantastic.
Yeah, and it's going to be good to see that one back. Lots of different looks around the league. Some other honorable mentions for what I think are the best ones. St. Louis, I love the red and the blue. The old Gretzky uniform that he used to don. They switched that one around. The Capitals, going with the old Eagle logo, but keeping it in red and blue, which I think is real slick. What was the other one here? The Kings, obviously, going with the Laker colors is pretty nice. And then the last one for me that I really, really liked were the Ottawa, the pure red ones, which I thought were pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's not some of the teams haven't been around really that long. Like, for example, Nashville. That doesn't really look any different from. I mean, it's a little bit different styled, but
or Vegas.
Or Vegas. Yeah, exactly. Did they even release one?
Yeah, they did. It's a red one with. It's kind of got some ugly striping, I'm not going to lie. And then, like, the logo is two swords crossed and, like, a shining star.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that one's a little different, but I guess retro doesn't really fit into your jersey theme when
you've only been
around for 3 seasons.
3 years.
But,
yeah. I mean, Pittsburgh's were pretty plain, but it's nod back to the, the Yager and Lemieux days, which I don't mind it. There's one other one that I'm trying to remember that really stuck out in my mind that was just horrible. What do you think of the Phoenix one?
I mean, I get it, but I don't like it. Like, I like their black, the other retro jerseys that they had. I think they're called the Kachina ones.
Yeah.
The ones that they wore last season. I think those are sick. But this purple one with the, the deserty mountains, I'm not too hot and bothered over.
I like the logo. The logo's like it almost looks like a peyote hallucination, a coyote.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of the desert scape on the bottom. I think it's
Yeah.
pure cheese, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your take on that, because that's one of those jerseys that you either love it or you hate it.
And that's honestly kind of the reaction that we've gotten to it. A lot of people, I've seen like a lot of lists and tier videos, and it's either in the S tier for really good or the F tier for really bad, or, at the bottom or the top of the list. So definitely a polarizing jersey there. But I guess we should probably get into talking about the actual teams in these divisions, not just their jerseys. What do you say?
Yeah, that sounds good. I forgot about those retros, though. That was a good. That was not planned. That was just random conversation that led us there. So
yeah, I was just kind of like going over like the different changes, and I'm like, oh yeah, the reverse retros. We got to bring up Blasty, but we got our opinions out there. But
so to wrap up the changes, or the new NHL, what it's going to look like. The best part is rivalries. I mean, you're going to be playing each team in your division. Well, in case of the Canadian division, 10 times. So we're going to get 10 battles of Alberta, 10 games against the Canucks, 10 games against the Jets. It's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, Toronto, whatever. I mean, they're going to be entertaining games, don't get me wrong, but I'm excited for the Western Canadian battles. I think they're going to be fantastic.
And the only shame about it is that there's going to be no fans in the building. The atmosphere is probably not going to be as good as it was for those intense Battle of Albertas last year, culminating with the goalie fight between Talbot and Mike Smith.
Yeah.
Talbot, of course, now with the Minnesota Wild. But, that's the unfortunate part. It would be nice to get fans in the building. But, hey, maybe by summer, if we both make the playoffs, maybe we get a little bit of fans in the building and get it rocking again for the Battle of Alberta playoff series. That would be the best. So
yeah,
we
I kind of like
to
in terms of fans in the stands. Just a quick 10-second thing here. I really liked what the Buffalo Bills did for their playoff game. You had to get in the stadium, you had to show a negative COVID test.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good blueprint for both the NHL and the other major sports, the NBA and Major League Baseball, going forward. The NFL always, they're a money machine, but so they can afford it. It's a little bit different with NHL and NBA. We'll see if they can kind of duplicate or do something similar. That would be good to get back in the building. And I know I would be down to go to a game with fans if that were sort of the protocol and procedure. So good point there. And the Bills, I'm looking forward to watching that game with the Ravens on the weekend.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be killer.
Good
sports weekend last weekend too, with 6 NFL games on. Man, I was watching football constantly.
Yeah, I watched quite a few as well, except for that Bears Saints snoozer. How did the Bears get the playoffs, man? I don't get it.
How did Washington make the playoffs too? So
yeah. Well, the NFC least, as we know. So we'll jump into the North Division, obviously consisting of the
Scotiabank North Division.
Oh, sorry, NHL. The Scotiabank North Division. I kind of see this one. Well, I'll leave that for when we do predictions at the end. But which team do you want to start with? You want to start in the East or the West?
Let's start out in the East and work our way west.
Okay.
So I'll. What we're going to do is we're going to go over additions to the team this year, departures or subtractions, and then some notable re-signings for each team. And Adam will give his take on what the offseason was for the team we're discussing, and then I'll give my take, and we'll move on.
All right.
At the end of the division, we'll probably, we'll give you our top 4 picks for who makes the playoffs coming out of that division. And don't place your wagers based on what we say.
Yeah.
Word of warning.
Especially in this North Division. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so we'll start in Montreal. They've had a very interesting offseason, to say the least. They kind of split the camps in the hockey world. People absolutely either love what they did or think Bergevin is out to lunch or losing his rocker. So to recap, they have lost Carl Alsner on the back end, Max Domi, Keith Kincaid, Michael. Oh, wait, sorry. Is that additions? Never mind. I have 2 players in the wrong column here. Those are the 3 notable subtractions. Adding to the fold, they signed Tyler Toffoli, Josh Anderson to a huge ticket, 7 years at 5.5. Don't know about that. Bergevin's a gambling man on that.
Yeah.
Jake Allen to a pretty much an overpay contract. I don't have the number in front of me right now. Joel Edmondson, Alexander Romanov, and then recently they signed two UFAs that have been kicking around the league for a while, Corey Perry and Michael Furleek, which will be familiar to Flames fans. So I'm not sure if they're going to make the team, but they're in training camp.
Yeah. They actually got put on waivers today, both of them.
Oh, did they? Oh,
but
wow.
Again, I don't know what that truly means in the grand scope of things, but they are on waivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be to the taxi squad or something like that. Who knows?
Exactly.
And then notable signings for Montreal re-signing. So Brendan Gallagher, there was lots of trade talks with Brendan Gallagher, kind of name being rumored in a bunch of packages, and then all of a sudden he was signed the next day. So 6 years at 6.5, which is I think a fair price for Gallagher. A little bit on the high side, I think, but he does. I mean, he's your captain, so is he the captain or is Weber the captain?
Weber, actually, they might not even have a captain right now.
He's the heart and soul of that team, Brendan Gallagher.
Definitely one of the leaders for sure.
They also brought back Victor Mete for 1 year at $735,000, which is not a bad price for a decent young B-man. And this was they signed this person like right after they were eliminated from the playoffs. Jeff Petrie, they also re-upped at the end of the bubble playoff round there. 4 years at 6.25. Which is a little bit of an overpay for Jeff Petrie, I think, but he's been pretty steady for them, so I understand why they gave him that number. So Adam, takes on Montreal.
So obviously they're definitely better on paper than they were last year. There's no doubt about that. When you add the likes of Toffoli, Anderson, you get a little bit more insurance in goal and Jake Allen, and then obviously, some internal development with Ryan Poehling and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, taking hopefully for them bigger steps this year. And that Romanov is supposed to be something special too. A 2nd round pick, I believe, either 1 or 2 years ago. There's all sorts of hype around him. So I think I like what they've done. They're definitely better on paper, but sometimes when you get all those new faces, it doesn't quite click. And I think that'll be the issue. If they can develop some good chemistry, then I think they definitely have a shot at being in the top 4 easily with some of the names. And of course, with Montreal, we would be remiss to not talk about Carey Price. It all comes down to Carey Price. If he's no good, the Habs are no good. And I don't think that narrative is going to change this year too much. So if he is the Carey Price that we think he is, they'll be right in the mix. There's no doubt about it.
One name I probably should add to that list is didn't Kovalchuk finish the season with Montreal?
He's actually back in Russia, so I believe he accepted a trade to Washington, if I'm not.
Yes, that's what it was
at the trade deadline. But I just saw the other day that he signed back in Russia.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it's a shame because he actually kind of fit in pretty nice in Montreal, and I think they were wanting him back, but I think salary cap probably got in the way.
Yeah, you can thank COVID for that. Those are what I kind of talked about in the first 5-10 minutes of the podcast. Those kind of players that have been hovering around, making a living, going from team to team. That's just not going to happen anymore.
Yeah. So he's back in the KHL with Avangard Omsk on a 2-year deal. So that'll probably seen the last of him in an NHL uniform.
I would think so.
But what are your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens?
I agree. They're good on paper. I'm not sold on Josh Anderson. He's got a lot to prove, especially with the Montreal sports media. If he struggles out of the gate, he's going to be public whipping boy number 1. I hope he's healthy. I know he was very injury dogged last season. He only played 3 games or something like that. But the previous year before that, he was a force. So if he turns out to be that that top six forward that Bergevin is paying them as, it can make Bergevin look pretty good. I think it's a little bit of an overpay. I think Montreal kind of beefed up anticipating the Canadian division because they're going to have to play a lot of Western Canadian hockey teams who play the game a little bit differently than the East Coast teams. And Montreal being in the old Atlantic division. Well, it's not old, but the previous Atlantic division. So like the likes of Toffoli, who's he's a big forward and good for usually 15 to 20 goals a season. Anderson obviously is a huge increase to your physicality if he's 100% healthy. I do like they have a backup goalie now to Carey Price, because Carey Price, especially with the pace of this upcoming season, is going to get injured. I think that's going to be a key thing, depth this year. Teams have to have depth because there's going to be a lot more injury because they're playing every second night, like through the entire regular season here. So there's not going to be a whole lot of days off. But I mean, they'll miss Domi. Domi was a firecracker for them too. But I think that's really the only person they're going to miss. It all depends on, team gel, team chemistry, and how they adjust to playing Western Canadian teams for the most part. I think they'll be competitive. They're not going to get blown out of the arena. But again, Carey Price, that's the X factor. If he's lights out, they might be top 3, they might be top 2. It all depends on Carey Price.
And for me, Montreal is the team outside of Ottawa that I'm least confident in, because obviously I think Ottawa can be competitive. I don't think they're going to challenge for a playoff spot, but I don't think they'll be so far behind everyone. We'll get to them in a minute here, but Montreal, besides Ottawa, is the team I have the least amount of confidence in. But again, won't be surprised at all if they make the playoffs. And for any of our listeners who listen to previous episodes, know that I am a big fan of Josh Anderson. But even when I saw the trade and then the extension, I'm like, oh, that's a gamble. That's a gamble. If he's the player that, scored 30 goals a couple years ago and stays relatively healthy, even if he gives you, 48 out of 56 or whatever, it's going to be a good deal. And then obviously come playoffs, we saw what he could do with Columbus against Tampa Bay a few years ago. So if they get that Josh Anderson, then I like their chances. But if they get last season, the one goal, constantly injured, it might be a struggle for them this year. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. One thing that I forgot to mention, I do like the signing of Edmondson to replace Alzner. I think that's a major upgrade on the back end there. So, Montreal's blue line is pretty decent. It's not elite, but it's not bad either. It's just kind of like middle of the pack. I think they'll be absolutely fine on the back end for the most part if everyone stays healthy. So I think that Edmondson signing was a good signing by Bergevin.
Yeah, and the left side is going to look pretty good there with Edmondson, and then also Ben Sherratt's pretty underrated, I think. He's not a spectacular defenseman, but just solid. And then, if this Alexander Romanov is who a lot of analysts and fans think he'll be, then they're looking pretty good with Shea Weber and Petrie on the other side. So there's our look at Montreal. Do you want to move on to Ottawa or Toronto now?
Let's go to Ottawa.
Ottawa? All righty.
So just to recap, departures from I can never pronounce this guy's name. Departures from the Senators. Mark Borowiecki.
Mark Borowiecki.
Wasn't even close. Sound like Don Cherry there.
that Polish name.
Ryan Callahan, Ron Hainsey. I've never even heard of this guy. Hubert Labrie. Clark MacArthur. Scott Sabrin, Craig Anderson has finally had his departure from the Sens. I think it's been long overdue.
Yeah.
Mikhail Bodker, Andreas England, and Anthony Duclair. So those are the departures. A lot of people leaving, which is to be expected. They have a lot of turnover on that team right now because they're rebuilding. Additions this year, their major free agent signing, Evgeny Dandinov. They brought in Eric Gabranson for a little bit of veteran presence, I think, for the young core that's going to be coming up here. Because, man, Ottawa's cupboard is pretty well stocked.
Probably the best prospect pool, maybe besides LA. I know LA is looking pretty good right now with Turcotte and Byfield and Bjornfot and all those guys. So yeah, definitely a top 2 prospect pool there in Ottawa.
Yeah, for sure. So replacing Greg Anderson, they signed Matt Murray to a 4-year at $6.25 million contract. I think that's a little bit of an overpay for Matt Murray, but again, prove me wrong.
Yeah, that's another gamble.
That's another gamble for sure. But Ottawa's got the room where they can kind of make that work for them, I think, if they have to.
Yeah.
Josh Brown, Logan Shaw, and Austin Watson. And then actually just recently they signed Galchenyuk as well to a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the additions for the Senators. Re-signings or notable signings for the Sens. Connor Brown, 3 years at $3.6 million per, and Chris Tierney, 2 seasons at 3.5.
Yeah, and then obviously their other big addition is going to be Tim Stützle, or Stützle, however you say it. We saw him just star at the World Juniors. He's going to be absolutely dynamic. I'm pretty sure he's going to step right in here at the age of 18. And, he's one of those guys that has that star potential. Maybe he could drag them if he to a playoff spot, if he has that, stud rookie season, first line player, offensive star. He could drag them to, if not a playoff berth, maybe a close battle, a few points out. So he could got to be the X factor for Ottawa, I think. But yeah, just in terms of the rest of the roster, just not quite there, especially on the back end right now. A lot of youth, a lot of inexperience, and losing some key guys back there. And then also, as you said, Matt Murray, huge gamble. If they get the Matt Murray of 3 years ago, then they'll be able to do some damage and upset some teams. But like I said, big gamble there if you're asking me.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all your points there. I think they actually are going to surprise a few people, though. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be more competitive than people think. I could potentially see them squeaking into the number 4 playoff spot in the North Division too, all dependent on how Matt Murray's season goes. If he returns to form, I know he struggled in Pittsburgh, hence why his name was bounced all over the place in terms of the trade deadline for goalies. Yeah, and of course free agent signings as well. It was a trade. Pittsburgh traded him, right?
Yeah, it was a 2nd round pick, and just looking it up here, I believe there was also a prospect in there too. Just bringing it up right now. It was Matt Murray for Jonathan Gruden and a 2nd round pick. So
not much in return.
B- prospect there. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I mean, I they didn't really lose much. Some of the veterans they've lost in departures, but they don't really. They brought in Gabranson to fill the hole for Hainsey and stuff like that. So, I really like their free agent signing. I think Dadonov is going to be dynamic for them, especially playing with some of the young talent that's going to come up. He's one of the most underrated players in the NHL because he was playing in Florida his whole career. Yeah, he's steady Eddie. I mean, 30 goal guy, or not 30 goal. Pretty close to a 30 goal pace. High 20s anyways. Just kind of under the radar, always got overshadowed by Barkov and Huberdeau and those guys in Florida. I think that was a great addition for the Senators going forward. So also I love what they did with Austin Watson, bringing in a little toughness, a little grit, show some of those young guys how to play in the NHL, what it takes to be competitive day in and day out. And I think Galchenyuk could pay dividends for him too. I mean, he's a young guy still. He's bounced all over the place. He's got some offensive upside, but I think he'll fit in well with the young core in Ottawa, and hopefully they can get something out of him too. Because he's bounced all over the place. But so again, hinges on Matt Murray for sure. Anything else on the Ottawa Senators?
Just two things there. I kind of see this like as Galchenyuk's kind of like last chance in the NHL with
I would agree.
With the way he's sort of bounced around. So maybe that is the kick in the pants he needs to finally have a, consistent and find a role here with Ottawa. And that would be nice to see. It'd be a nice story. And then also it'll be interesting to see what Dadonov does away from Barkov. I still think he can be good. We'll see if Barkov was sort of, the reason he was putting up so much points, but I do like Dadonov. I think he's a dynamic player as well. So we'll see if he can carry that without Barkov playing center ice on his line. I think that's it for Ottawa. If you're ready to move on to Toronto.
Yep. We'll move on down the province there to the Maple Leafs. So notable subtractions. Oh God, that was a fumble of a word. Departures. I'll just say departures.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tyson Barrie signed in Edmonton. Cody Ceci departed. I can't remember. I think he ended in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Kyle Clifford, Mika Salamaki, Jeremy Bracco, Frederick Gauthier, and Evan Rodriguez are all notable departures from the Leafs. Notable additions: Jimmy Vesey, TJ Brody, Jumbo Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, Aaron Dell, which is a good pickup, Zach Bogosian, Travis Boyd, and Alexander Barbanov.
Yeah.
Notable signings. They signed Michael Hutchinson to a 2-year, $725,000 contract. They just recently signed Travis Dermott to $874,000 contract for 1 year, and Ilya Mikheyev, 2 years at $1.6 million.
Yeah, and then another one that I want to bring up too is Mikko Lehtinen. He was sort of like an all-star in the KHL, pretty much the best defenseman in the KHL. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits in the NHL. A left shot defenseman who can play the right side, power play specialist. So I'm assuming he'll be on the first power play unit, probably with Morgan Riley there. But definitely a new look Toronto Maple Leafs. A little bit older, a little bit grittier, a little bit tougher. Seems like Kyle Dubas is finally sort of given into. It's not just all skill and speed, which we all know. You need a good mix of both. This is definitely more of a playoff roster than a regular season roster, in my eyes. What do you think of the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely a little bit older, a little bit grittier, a little bit tougher. I don't agree with the hype that Joe Thornton's bringing to the Maple Leafs. I don't think it's Joe Thornton, so he's good for 20 to 30 points a season. I think given the opportunity, he could increase that to 40. I think he's not going to be able to keep up to a lot of those Maple Leafs in the run and gun offense that they have these days. He'll be on the power play because he's always the setup man on the power play.
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons will be in front of the net in the power play. So there'll be a new look for the Maple Leafs. I think it's a step in the right direction. But I mean, I've said this for the last year in this podcast. I do not think the Maple Leafs are set up for success long term. Mm-hmm. You're paying way too much money to 2-3 players. I don't think that's a recipe for success in this league, especially now in COVID times. Dubas is going to have to get very creative to fill the bottom half of that roster every year while those contracts kind of work their way through. I can see them moving on from one of those players to free up some room to get some supporting cast, because as we know, you can have all the talent in the world, but you need the whole team roster to win a cup. Yeah. Case in point, Tampa Bay Lightning last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a full, complete roster with 4 lines that would just come at you. Maple Leafs don't have that. And obviously, it's similar situation to Price in Montreal. It all falls on Anderson's shoulders.
Yeah.
They do have a pretty good caliber backup there now with Aaron Dell coming from San Jose. Mm-hmm. So there are some options.
Campbell as well.
And Campbell.
Jack, yeah.
And they also signed Hutchinson for some goaltending depth there too. That's going to be key, I think. Goalies are going to drop like flies this season. I have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So they added some depth between the pipes. Blue line still a little suspect, I think. Replacing Barry with TJ Brody is a step in the right direction. Barry didn't really fit in the Maple Leafs. You're looking for those more defensive-minded defensemen with Toronto, but I don't think he's the savior that he's being painted to be in the Toronto media.
Yeah.
I heard one crazy quote, like the only reason Mark Giordano won the Vezina, or not Vezina, sorry.
The Norris.
Thank you. The Norris was because TJ Brody was playing with him. I heard that take coming out of Toronto the other day, and I just about fell off my chair. Brody is a very good, steady defenseman, but he's not the savior that he's being painted. But hopefully he does well. I do like TJ Brody.
Yeah, we wish him all the success there. He was a big part of the Flames for a while, and it would be nice to see him get some success there. And I think he's better defensively than Barry, but I think Barry's better offensively. So maybe that's a good thing for the Maple Leafs. Maybe Morgan Rielly can go back to being sort of that leading offensive defenseman that he's been known to be with TJ Brody on his right side. Looks like they're going to be a pair going forward. Yeah, and Thornton really brought in just for that power play role, I think. At 5-on-5, probably a fairly limited impact, I would say. But I do like the way their roster shapes up for the playoffs. And another big thing, they don't have to go through Boston or Tampa Bay.
That's true. I was just going to bring that up.
So right now, I think they're considered sort of the favorite to win, but it's going to be hard to pick a favorite in this Canadian division. But anything else on the Toronto Maple Leafs that you wanted to bring up?
Nope. No, I think that pretty much sums it up. I'm curious to see how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the more reliant on sort of some grit and some size, it'll be interesting to see how that gels with the obviously top end elite talent up front that they have. So shall we move on to the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah. So Winnipeg Jets. Oh, my phone's going off. My apologies.
No worries.
Notable departures for the Jets: Carl Dahlstrom, Anthony Bitetto, Cody Eakin, Dmitry Kulikov, Cameron Schilling, and Logan Shaw. So all kind of bottom tier forwards and a couple of blue liners. Notable additions: Paul Stastny coming back for his second stint in Winnipeg. Derek Forbort. Nate Thompson and Dominic Tonado. I've never even heard of that guy. I'm not sure. Notable re-signings or signings: Sami Niku was signed to a 2-year, $725,000 deal. Harkins, who I thought was one of the best players for the Jets in the playoff round versus the Flames. I can't remember what his first name is, but his last name is Harkins. Jansen, thank you. Yeah. Same deal as Niku, 2 years, $725,000, and that's unfortunate because that's the sign of the COVID times. There, those guys would have been in the $1 million range, maybe one and a half, but unfortunately they're stuck under that $1 million mark because of economics. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find Roslovic. Is he still under contract for the Jets, or is he a holdout? Or
no, he is currently an RFA holding out. He has requested a trade. He's more of a skill guy, and I think with some of the offensive depth, obviously their top 6 there is elite. Probably not getting a fair shake in terms of being in the top half of the lineup. So I think he's maybe looking for a new start. As of right now, obviously he won't be around to start the season. He's unsigned, and if he were to sign, he'd have to go through quarantines and stuff because he is from Columbus. So I think he's in the U.S. right now. So he would have to, come across the border, quarantine. So it'd be interesting to see if they can find a trade partner for Roslovic, maybe going back to Columbus. There's been talk of a kind of a Line A Roslovic for Dubois type of situation. There's been a little bit of speculation about that, more just spitballing than other things, but that's sort of where that sits. Looking for a fresh start for Roslovic.
Mm-hmm. But what's your thoughts on the Jets as a team?
Honestly, I kind of view them as kind of like what Montreal has been. They're going to go as far as Connor Hellebuck and those top 6 forwards can take them.
Yeah.
Not sure about the back end there. I think it's okay. They re-signed Dylan DeMello to a 4-year deal, I believe. But
I
obviously,
missed that one.
with Connor Hellebuck, if he's nominated for the Vezina again, they're going to be right in the mix, just like pretty much every team in the Canadian division. They're going to battle. They're going to be a hard out for any team, with that elite talent they have up front. And then if Hellebuck is Vezina quality again, they're going to be right in the mix. And despite some relative shortcomings on the back end, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good point. I agree. They're going to be, I think, challenging for that 4th playoff spot in the Canadian division. And I agree that they're only going to go as far as the top 6 will take them. So Scheifele, Stastny's up there. Wheelers, Kyle Connor. Wheeler, Kyle Connor. And, I mean, they're not super deep, but they do have a little bit of depth there. They'd be deeper with Roslovic in the lineup, that's for sure. But we'll see what happens in Winnipeg. I agree with you. Their blue line is still definitely the weak spot for sure. I mean, anytime you're talking Derek Forbort slotting into your potentially your second pairing defense there, you've got a little bit of an issue. Obviously, they've got the stud Morrissey to build around. I do think the DeMello signing is a good signing for them. Pionk has actually turned out to be a pretty decent defenseman as well, but after that, it kind of drops off in terms of caliber-wise. But we'll see what happens. They can always never know. That Liney's name's always out there, so they can bolster the blue line there. I'm sure they're looking to do something like that.
And also, they could do some serious damage if Laine and Stastny can find that chemistry that they had when Stastny came in at the trade deadline, I think a couple years ago. So if make Laine a little bit happier, that would only be a positive. And then obviously, if they're young defensive prospects in Niku and also the Finnish captain at the recent World Juniors, Ville Heinola,
I forgot about him.
Yeah, one of the best players in the tournament by far. If he can step in and make an impact, then they might be a force to be reckoned with. But obviously, a lot of things have to go right there for them to be a powerhouse in the Canadian division. Any last thoughts on Winnipeg?
Again, it comes down to the goaltending as well. I think they're only going to go as far as Hellebuck will take them. And the top 6 forward group there too. Pretty good, talented, deep group of top 6 anyways.
They're kind of one of those teams that if Hellebuck struggles, they could just outscore you like 7-6. They're kind of one of those teams. But we'll see where they fit in.
I mean, Hellebuck wasn't to form in the bubble playoffs there. I think that's a reason why the Flames took it in 4 games. He struggled a little bit there. So if he returns to form, the Jets will be competitive too. They can challenge for top spot in the Canadian division if everything goes according to plan. I mean, they're that talented. They just got to put it all together. But that's it for me from Winnipeg. Any last thoughts from you, or should we move on?
I think we should move on to the Oilers. We'll start with the rivals to the north. This is going to be an interesting season up north. There's a lot of people weren't, too pleased. Well, actually, here, I'll let you go through the additions and subtractions here before I sort of break down what I think about them. But go ahead.
So notable subtractions from the Oilers: Marcus Granlund, Josh Curry, Mike Green, who unfortunately never played a game after being traded for the Oilers, which is a kick in the nuts for the Oilers fans, I'm sure, for what they gave up for him. Andreas Athanasiou, so another deadline acquisition last year, gone. A pick was given up for him.
Yeah, 2 second rounders. That's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. Riley Sheehan, which is gone, which I thought he was a really good fit in the bottom six for Edmonton last year, down the middle. And Matt Benning from the blue line moved on as well. Notable additions, obviously the big signing, and now all you could hear about coming from Edmonton sports media was Tyson Barrie, our savior, signing a 1-year deal in Edmonton. They've also added Anton Forsberg. Alan Quine swapped Canadian teams, went up north. Unfortunately, I think he got put on waivers or cut.
Bastard.
From the Oilers camp earlier this week. Kyle Turris, obviously a signing in the offseason free agency there, and Dominic Cahoon from where did he come from? Florida? Buffalo?
No, he was in Pittsburgh at one point. Let me look up because he was kind of. Oh, I think he was in Buffalo as well.
Buffalo, that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those ones that kind of was weird to me that there wasn't more interest in him league wide. Maybe there was, and I'm just sort of missing the bar here. But yeah, he was in Buffalo, split last season between Buffalo and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But,
and some notable re-signings you kind of alluded to already. Mike Smith re-ups for another year at $1.5 million. Tyler Ennis re-signs for a $1 million price tag for 1 year. Jesse Puljujärvi comes back over from Finland to play in the league again. 2 years at $1.175 million. They just re-upped Ethan Bear to a 2-year, $2 million contract, and they re-signed Chris Russell for another year at 1.25.
Mm-hmm. So obviously there's no like huge signings there. It's more just sort of depth, but one player that could be an X factor if he lives up to his potential coming back from Finland is Jesse Puljujärvi. Hopefully I said that right. I think I did. Looked like he found a bit of form there in Finland. Obviously different game, but if he can find any sort of his offensive upside, definitely going to be good for them. I like the Ethan Bear re-signing. Tyson Barrie, I have a feeling is going to put up so many points this year running that first unit power play. They were already really good. And then now Tyson Barrie, because that's his bread and butter, is the power play, leading the rush on the power play. So I think we're going to see Barrie return to form in terms of points. He's still going to be the Tyson Barrie of, Colorado, where puts up a lot of points, but struggles in his own end. That's just sort of who he is at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah. Kyle Turris, I think, is a solid depth signing, although he did fall off pretty hard in Nashville. We'll see if he can sort of stay relevant.
It's funny, he was being touted as a savior too by Edmonton media.
And then obviously I think the sort of the head scratcher was the re-signing of Mike Smith. Wasn't great last year. It was definitely outperformed by Koskinen. And a lot of people weren't happy with bringing Mike Smith back, but I guess in times like this, there's sort of some cost certainty. Obviously they do have some cap problems, sort of like every other team. And the familiarity, he was there last year. Don't have to worry about integrating a new goaltender into the system or anything. But I think if you're an Edmonton fan, you're kind of a little choked that you're coming back with the same goaltending tandem. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's been, well, I won't say documented, but discussed that the Oilers and the Flames were the last two teams in on Markstrom, and Calgary offered him the extra year to seal the deal. So he decided to come to Calgary. Plus, the Swedish connection there. We're pretty much little Sweden in Calgary these days.
Yeah. Big buds with Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, exactly. Mikko Koskinen is a good goalie.
Yeah.
And he definitely proved that through the stretch of through the stretch run. Unfortunately, he was interrupted by COVID. He can put together a string of solid starts, so that's a positive for Edmonton fans for sure. He's a little bit weak on his gloves, so hopefully he's worked on that in the offseason. He was getting lit up a little bit by a few teams there, but definitely a solid goaltender. Is he a bona fide number one? No. Let's not beat around the bush. Neither is Mike Smith. But that's the way it works.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to bring back 2 NHL caliber goaltenders, and obviously there's not one in the system that they were confident in, so that's why they brought back Mike Smith. I suspect that Koskinen will start majority of the games. Smith will get in there for, if Koskinen struggles right away, probably, but Smith will be in for maybe 10 games, 15 games kind of thing as a backup. It is what it is. Edmonton's problem is the blue line, and their blue line, unfortunately, with Clefbaum going down and being out for the season, did not get much better in terms of defense. I agree with you. Tyson Barrie's going to make an already lethal power play even more lethal. Don't take penalties against Edmonton. I'll tell you what, because they're going to freaking kill you with that power play unit. But I mean, the Bear signing was good, but outside of Bear, who do they have on the blue line? They lost Benning.
Yeah, they got Larson still, which, he's a number 4 guy. He's not a top pair guy, in which they thought they were getting when they traded Hall for him.
Yeah, they've got Nurse.
Still. Nurse is, good second pair guy, I think. Chris Russell's still there for another year. He got re-signed. I think that was more of an expansion draft thing. I'm not entirely sure. They did bring in one little underrated defenseman, Slater Cuckoo, name of the century here. And it's spelled very weird. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Koek, Slater Cuckoo.
No, I've never heard of him.
He's kind of one of those analytical darlings. He in pretty solid ice time last year. I think he was in Chicago. Just spends a lot more time in the offensive zone than in the defensive zone. So I think he'll give him a little bit of a boost, but obviously nothing major. Still the biggest hole on that blue line is the absence of Clefbaum, who looks like he's going to be out the entire season due to shoulder surgery, I believe.
It's just bad luck. I feel for Edmonton fans on that too, having their number 1 defenseman be out for the whole season.
And he definitely is their number 1 defenseman, without a doubt. Ask any Oiler fan and they'll tell you who their best defenseman is. Maybe Ethan Bear can take another step closer to Clefbaum's level this season. But
I suppose we should give them credit too. They do have Bouchard that's coming up on the blue line as well.
Their prospects are good, and Broberg. So if they can step in, especially Bouchard being on the right side, that would be a huge boost for their blue line. Obviously, a highly touted 10th overall pick a couple years ago. So if he can step in, will definitely increase their chances of success this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty good for the Oilers. Any last thoughts at all?
Obviously, it's sort of the same story with the Oilers. Can they get enough scoring depth beyond the big 2 of McDavid and Draisaitl, and then can they keep the puck out of the net? Those are their 2 biggest worries: is scoring depth and goals against. So if Koskinen can grab the ball and run with a number 1 position, I think they'll be in the playoffs, but who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Oilers will make the playoffs for sure in the Canadian division. I think they might challenge for the top 2 spots, to be honest. They're just that good up front. And I mean, with that power play, it can plug a lot of holes on the back end that may be there. And they can outscore anyone definitely in the Canadian division, but anyone in the league on any given night. So with the talent up front, so can't discount that. It's going to be fun. I don't know what to expect from 10 games against the Oilers and the Flames. So
sorry, I was just going to say, we'll see what the Cassian and Kachuk rivalry boils up to this year. See if it gets even more out of hand than it was last year.
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully that's put to bed, but it might resurface.
Yeah.
Depending how the first couple games go. One interesting storyline out of Edmonton, too, that is going to be talked about this year is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is on his last year of his deal, $6 million, and he becomes a UFA at the end of this season. So what do they do with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, in your opinion?
Well, it's probably going to have to be dependent on how their season goes. If it's not looking good and they're not looking like they're going to make the playoffs or have a guarantee of making the playoffs, maybe they look to move him. Maybe extension talks have started. I'm not sure. It's kind of going to be one of those play it by a year situations. Obviously, Nugent Hopkins is pretty well liked in Edmonton.
Yeah, he's a good player.
I don't think he's quite reached the heights that I think a lot of fans had hoped of him being a number one overall pick, but still a solid player, in that 50 to 60 point range. So we'll see if they challenge for the playoffs and they're looking like a contender, then maybe they look to extend him and see what happens there.
Yeah, it might be good timing for the Oilers in that regard, that the market's a little depressed there. Mm-hmm. Nugent Hopkins might not be commanding as much money as he would have if the league kind of continued as normal over the last year. So it might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise there for Edmonton fans and for the organization. But yeah, no, I just thought Edmonton's got a lot of money coming off the books next season. Yeah. So their Chason's not under contract. And it's obviously some of their depth forwards, but even on the blue line, Larson's contract's over. Barry's contract needs to be, depending on what they decide to do there. And so there's a lot of money coming off the books, and of course Mike Smith as well. So it's interesting what Edmonton might do. Just want to get your take.
I think the important thing there is that I think Nugent Hopkins wants to be in Edmonton. I don't think he has eyes of going anywhere else, so that's obviously a plus for the team if they decide to re-enter talks with him at the end of the season or during the season. I don't think he's looking for a change of scenery. Who knows over the course of a season, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's move on down the QE2 highway to Calgary Flames. Or do you want to do Vancouver Canucks first and then hop to the Flames to kind of finish?
We could do Calgary. Obviously, we did do a little bit of a recap in our last episode of free agency and signings they've made, but some other stuff has come through. We've gotten looks at line combinations and defensive pairings. So why don't you run down the additions and subtractions and we'll get into it.
Okay, subtractions for the Flames. Of course, we've already talked about TJ Brody going to the Maple Leafs, Cam Talbot heading to Minnesota, Austin Czarnik, who signed in New York with the Islanders. Mm-hmm. Mark Jankowski, who signed with the Pens. I don't think will ever be missed in Calgary. Gustafsson, which is unfortunate. I thought he was a pretty good fit for the Flames, but he signed in Philly. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking it's either Chicago or Philly. Forbert, who we mentioned, is on Winnipeg now. Alan Quine went up the road to Edmonton. Tobias Reeder, who is now signed with the same deal he had here with Buffalo, $700K for a year. Michael Stone is on this list, but they just brought Michael Stone back, actually, didn't they, on a PTO?
Yeah. So we'll see if he actually gets a contract or not, but just a body.
Yeah, and John Gillies is no longer in the organization as well. Those are the departures. Additions, we all know the major addition in the offseason, the 6x6, the Jakob Markstrom, number one goaltender, who we finally have now. Really excited to see how that works out for the Flames. I think it could be a pretty good move for the Flames going forward with Markstrom in net. That coupled with one of the worst signings I think that we've seen in recent Flames history with Chris Tanev at 4 seasons times $4.5 million. Also coming to the Flames, Louis Domingue for some goaltending depth. Alex Petrovic from the Boston Bruins for a little defensive depth. Dominique Simone from the Penguins. Joachim Nordstrom from Boston. And Josh Levo from the Canucks, who is a sneaky good pickup. Notable re-signings are Shillington, just happened last week, 1 year times $785,000. Of course, the big offseason re-signing was the Breadman, Manjapani, coming back for 2 years at $2.45 million, which is great value for him. And Ronaldo at $700K, Zach Ronaldo.
Yeah. So obviously lots of new bodies in for the Flames on both the forward group and on the back end. Obviously really no discussion about the goaltenders right now. It's going to be Markstrom number 1, Rittich number 2, which I actually think will be good for Rittich. We've seen him play his best hockey or best net minding as a number 2 without all the pressure on him. It was the same with Mike Smith and with Cam Talbot. The biggest question for me is what are the D pairings looking like? So for tonight's scrimmage, it was Gio and Anderson on the top pair, and then we had Hanifin and Tanev on the other top pair for the other team. And then what I think is going to end up being the third pairing, which is Juuso Välimäki with Nestorov on the right-hand side. I think in order for the Tanev signing to look really good, they have to keep him away from Gio, and he has to stay healthy. That's number 1. But I don't like Tanev being on the right side of Gio, 2 aging guys. Obviously, Tanev's a lot younger than Gio, but, lots of miles on both bodies. I think they need, a bit of youth and a bit of experience on each pair. So that's what the sort of the defensive pairings are looking like. And some new look lines up top. Have you seen some of the lines and how they're looking right now?
No, I haven't.
So right now they're trying tonight Gaudreau, Monahan, and Manjapane, and then Tkachuk on the left, Lindholm, and where is it here? And Dubé on the right. So that's looking like what the top 6 might look like. I think actually Dylan Dubé, I was watching the stream earlier, switched teams midway through the game.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. There was a clip on Twitter of him taking off a white jersey, putting on a red jersey. So interested to see what happens there. But they're definitely, and I heard Conroy on the radio today actually talking about they're going to try new things with the feeling that they always have that in the back pocket. They could go back to Gaudreau, Monahan, and Lindholm if need be. But I'm excited to see some new pairings. I like Lindholm at center, Tkachuk on the left with Lindholm, and Manjapane up with Gaudreau and Monahan. I like, I think Manjapane is the type of player who can sort of spark that line again and see if they can sort of regain the chemistry with Gaudreau and Monahan. Maybe get him back up to a point a game like we had him a couple seasons ago. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What are your thoughts on the pairings here?
So for the defensive side of things, well, first of all, with goaltending, I'll just quickly touch on it. I agree. I think this is a win-win situation for Rittich. I think he's going to shine coming in as a backup. Wasn't quite ready to take on a number 1 workload. He's still a young guy. Goalies don't usually come into their own until 28, 29, 30 in the league anyways. So I think it's a good situation. He'll learn a lot from Markstrom as well. And that's pretty good goaltending tandem in my opinion. So, and then there's lots of depth there as well in the AHL. As far as the defense goes for the Flames, I don't know what to do with Giordano. I really don't.
It's no secret that he struggled last season.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I hope he resets his trajectory. He was trending in the wrong direction last season. He's another year older, so he's 37 now. And the game is not getting any slower. So, and it's starting to catch up to him a little bit. And this was to be expected when they signed him for this 6.75, that the last 2 seasons might be a little bit of a drop off. I would not be surprised, and this is going to be a hot take, if Juuso Välimäki ends up taking Giordano's spot on the top pairing.
I 100% agree. I think he's going to be our number one defenseman by the end of the year. He's that good.
Yeah, I agree. Just with the way that his trajectory is headed. I mean, he looked like an all-star in Finland when he was over there. I loved watching those highlights on Twitter of the Finnish league that he was playing in. He looked like Wayne Gretzky out there,
rocking the gold helmet.
Yeah, it was great. But I don't see Giordano being top pair. I really don't. I think it's going to be Anderson definitely on the top pairing, potentially with Valimaki, depending on how that shakes down, depending on how they want to insulate Tanev too. I'm not sure. I mean, coaches get paid a lot of money. They know a lot more about the game than I do. But I don't see Mark Giordano being our number one defenseman by the end of the year. I actually was reading a lot of Flames predictions for the expansion draft, and they were all saying protect Giordano. If I was the Flames, I wouldn't be protecting Mark Giordano. I wouldn't be using my spot protecting Mark Giordano. I'd be protecting my young defenseman coming up and leaving Giordano out there for the potential to be scooped up if the Kraken would want him.
Yeah, it's a tough position for the team to be in because obviously he's the captain, kind of the face of the franchise for the past, 5 to 6 years, along with Gaudreau and Monahan. But we definitely saw a decline last year. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sure Gio would probably be the first one to tell you. If he does have a bounce back season, and it doesn't obviously have to go back to Norris type level. I don't think we're going to see that again, but if he can be better than he was last year, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the expansion draft because he is one of those players that they would have to protect. It's going to be tough because it's that moral and business balance, right? Like he's the captain, integral part of the community. It'd be tough to see him go that way, but at the end of the day, business is business. So, yeah.
I may sound like a jerk for saying that, but I would not be exposing Valimaki or an Anderson or something like that, trying to
definitely not
keep. Yeah. So Shillington, I think, will be exposed. But anyways, we'll do a expansion draft episode way later.
Way in the future.
See as far as the forwards go, I like that the Flames are going to try something new. I think they have a lot of depth up front now with some of the signings and some of the development of players as well. I mean, they got Peltier in the fold too. I don't think he's quite ready for NHL yet, but he will be headed to the AHL, I'm sure. Same with potentially Zari. I'm not sure if he's going to go back to the Western League or not, or if he's eligible. But the Flames did a lot of good work restocking the cupboard, I think, this past draft in the last 2 years. I'm really hoping that Dylan Dubé takes another step and breaks into that top 6 and stays there because I think that's where he belongs. Same with Mangiapane. I think he belongs in the top 6 as well. What I would like to see is Gaudreau and Monahan broken up. I think they've had far too long a leash for it to work. But you got to find out what do you do though when you do that? Who takes Monahan's spot? So it's either Backlund or Lindholm. Right now, I think probably Lindholm with somebody, but who knows? They have the depth now that they can play around with these combinations, right?
And Mangiapane on the right side of Gaudreau and Monahan isn't something that we've seen yet. So I do like that if Mangiapane can sort of spark that line again. Obviously, if it's not working through the first 5 games, you're going to have a pretty short leash this year. There's only 56 games, as we know. Can't be having, a bad 10-game start like we're sort of accustomed to as Flames fans.
Yeah, can't have a slow start. It might be too late.
Yeah, no slow starts. So
you know what line I was kind of bouncing around in my head? That would be a hell of a line to play against.
Which one?
Chuck, Levo, and then down the middle, Backlund.
Yeah, I can see it. That might end up being a combination that we see this year. Levo, that right shot, right winger that the Flames have coveted for a long time. Obviously not an elite player, but I think he a bit of an underrated one in his time in Toronto and Vancouver, and can find a bit of offense here in Calgary. Will certainly be welcomed.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm looking forward to see where he fits in the line. I think he could also be a definite line mate with Sam Bennett too, a kind of crash and bang line as well, which I think will be good. Excited to see who they keep on the team and who unfortunately doesn't make the cut or gets put on the taxi squad. I'm sure that picture will be painted by tomorrow afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's enough time on the Flames. I like the way their team is shaping up. Again, it's just, can they put it together in the playoffs? I think the Flames will be a playoff team this year again. Just, can they take that step?
Yeah.
It didn't get worse. Minus maybe the Tanev thing. I'm not sure about that yet.
Yeah. I think Brody to Tanev is a downgrade, but with Markstrom coming in, and maybe Gio bouncing back, and then obviously Valimaki is a huge key here. Maybe they'll come out at least even on the defensive and goaltending side of the things. But you want to move on to the Canucks now?
Yeah, the last team in the Canadian division, the Vancouver Canucks out west. So
bit of a tumultuous offseason.
Yeah, it seemed like they gave us their whole team from last year. Yeah, I know that was, of course, the running joke through Twitter was the Calgary Flames or the Calgary Canucks of Vancouver or something like that was the running joke. So notable subtractions from Vancouver's roster last year. Tyler Toffoli, who was a great fit for them in the playoffs. I think he'll be sorely missed. Signed with Montreal. Troy Stetcher departed. Jakob Markstrom, of course. Chris Tanev, we've talked about. Louis Domingue and Josh Lebo, who are all on the Flames. Additions: Braden Holtby in net to replace Jakob Markstrom. Bit of a downgrade. I think Holtby's on the back nine of his career, but should still be a pretty solid goaltender for them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the deal of the century by Jim Benning, the Nate Schmidt for a third-round pick deal that totally bailed out Vegas. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. That's pretty good return for a third-round pick. So Nate Schmidt coming from the Golden Knights to bolster the Canucks blue line. Notable signings: Jake Virtanen gets re-upped for 2 years at $2.55. Adam Gaudette gets another contract for 1 year at $950,000, and Tyler Mott gets re-upped for 2 years at $1.2 million.
Probably just because of that single beauty goal he scored against St. Louis in the playoffs, dangled their whole team. But no, the Canucks are going to be interesting. I think two things that are key with them: obviously the goaltending. Holtby and Demko have to at least be a good 1A, 1B situation. Who knows if I mean, we saw the high end of Demko in the playoffs, whether he can sustain that for a 56-game season or however many games he ends up playing. That we'll have to wait and see on that. But Virtanen's going to have to step into that role that's left by Toffoli. Finally reach that top six potential that so many people, including myself, thought he was capable of. And then I actually think it is a major upgrade going from Tanev to Nate Schmidt. I think Nate Schmidt is a underrated defenseman throughout the whole league, top pairing guy in my opinion. And he does play the right side, being a left-hand shot, which is nice. Another kind of little X factor there for them is their very highly touted second-round pick from a couple of years ago, Niels Hoglander, the all-name club in the NHL. But, he's one of those dynamic, high, flashy skill players that we he's a highlight reel over in the Swedish Elite League. I believe he scored a couple of lacrosse-style goals, just been dangling everyone over there. So if he can step in, and it looks like he's impressed so far in camp. So if he can step in and add some offensive depth, will only help their chances of being a contender.
Yeah, and unfortunate news for Flames fans as well. It looks like Michael Furlan's career is over in the National Hockey League. They put him on long-term injury reserve, the Canucks, to make some room for other players. Dealing with concussions. I mean, the way that he plays, it was only a matter of time, unfortunately, until that sort of style crept up and caught up with him. Definitely a dynamic force when he was healthy, for sure. But it's sad to see him that his NHL career is over, unfortunately. But just wanted to bring that as well.
Also, one other note: Travis Hamonic, former Flame, just
Flames
and Canucks. Flames and Canucks just swapping players. Coming in on a PTO. I don't know if he's officially signed a contract. I don't see it here, but I assume he'll probably get a 1 year, $1 million type deal, or maybe even less. But yeah, it's going to be weird seeing Hamonic in a Canucks jersey and Tanev in a Flames jersey.
Yeah, definitely strange times. All right, well, I think we'll wrap up the Canadian division and likely this podcast with our predictions for the top 4 spots making the playoffs coming out of the Canadian division. So
yeah, then I think next episode we'll run through the other 3 divisions a little bit quicker. Obviously being in Canada, we want to focus on the Canadian teams. That's our sort of our bread and butter, and then we'll run through the other 3 divisions in the next episode, which we're shooting to record tomorrow to get it out before the season.
Yep.
But with that, do you want to go into your predictions for the Canadian division, or do you want me to go first?
You can go ahead and go first if you want.
All right. So maybe a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I do think Toronto is good enough to win this division, so I'm going to pick Toronto to win the division. Calgary, I believe, is finishing second. Edmonton third, and I'm going to say Vancouver fourth. And I think Montreal, Ottawa, and Winnipeg miss the playoffs.
Ooh,
that is my prediction. I just something doesn't seem right with Laine right now, and if they don't have Laine in Winnipeg, I'm just, Montreal and Ottawa and Winnipeg are the 3 teams that I'm least confident in. So that's my bold prediction, I guess you could say. So I got Toronto first, Calgary second, Edmonton third, and Vancouver fourth.
You think the Canucks are going to be making it, eh?
I think so. I think Pettersson and Hughes, they're those franchise pillars. I think they can drag them to the playoffs.
Okay, well, that was interesting. I was not expecting that. I agree with you, Adam. But from my prediction, I do think the Maple Leafs are going to win the Canadian division. I think the offense will speak for itself. They're going to run over a few teams, especially playing Ottawa 10 times and things like that. So I do think the Maple Leafs are going to win the division. I do think the Oilers are going to finish second, as much as it pains me to to say that as a Flames fan. I just based on their power play alone, I think they're going to be definitely finishing second. It's going to be close. It's not going to be in second by a mile, but I do think the Flames, with all the new faces and the line combinations, I'd love to be proven wrong, are going to finish third. And I do think Montreal is going to squeak into the playoffs if they can put it all together. So I have Montreal finishing fourth. Very close decision for me between Montreal and Winnipeg. Again, the Laine factor, I agree with you. Something's up with that. And the blue line for Winnipeg was the ultimate decision there for my ranking. So I have Winnipeg finishing fifth, Vancouver sixth, and Ottawa last place in the Canadian division. So as a recap, we got the Leafs, the Oilers, the Flames, the Canadians, the Jets, the Canucks, and the Senators.
All right. Well, you can take those right to the bank because they're both gonna pay out. But if you look at our previous times we've done predictions, not so hot.
Not so good, exactly.
I think what was it, the 2019 playoffs? We only got 2 of the teams right,
Something like that,
to get into the semifinals or something like that. Of course, that was the year it was really weird playoffs that year. That was the Columbus sweep over Tampa. But yeah, those are our predictions for the Canadian Scotiabank North Division. Get at us on social media with your predictions. Once again, on Twitter at Off the Iron Pod, or Instagram Off the Iron Podcast, or on Facebook Off the Iron Podcast on there. Any final thoughts on today's episode, Evan?
No, just it's glad to be back. I'm glad to be back.
Mhm.
It's nice to talk about something other than babies.
Yeah.
In my world, I get a lot of baby talk now, so it's good. But it's also nice to have some conversations about hockey, which, as you can tell, Adam and I are both very passionate. We spent about an hour going over one division. So
Yeah. We originally intended to do 2 divisions today, but
yeah.
we always get to talking, and who knows where it always takes us. But hopefully that's why you guys listen, for our opinions, and yeah, it was fun. It's fun to get back on the old mic.
Yeah, and stay tuned this season for more frequent episodes from us. We're going to try at least once a week to get some content out for you guys, and also be working a lot on our social media presence as well. So get at us. If there's anything you want us to discuss on the podcast, we'll give you a shout out, that kind of thing. And we'll go from there. Do you want to remind us who this podcast is brought to us by?
Of course, it is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Barbecue Catering. Stop by the shop for a $12 lunch combo, including any one of their signature smoked meats, sausages, or burgers, as well as rib specials on Friday and rotating specials on other weekdays, including mac and cheese Mondays. Visit them at 5303 68th Avenue, Southeast Calgary, open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays. Or check out their website at www.rockymountainbarbecue.ca to pre-order online.
Okay, and with that, I think we'll wrap up our return to podcasting here after a several month hiatus. It's been nice talking with you guys, and definitely, stay positive, keep your heads up out there. I think we're turning a corner in this COVID thing, and hopefully life will be returning to normal this year, later in the year here. So keep positive, keep trucking, and thanks for listening. And with that, we'll cue the music.